Hello, it's been a while, but I'm coming out of YouTube hibernation just for the Project for Awesome. In case you don't know, P4A is an annual-ish charity event. It's a 48-hour live stream where everyone supports various charities that they care about, and we all donate into a pool that will eventually be split among the winners of a vote. This year I put a lot of thought into kind of pinpointing an organization that really embodies two things that I've been thinking a lot about. The first is this need to realign the world with the idea of truth and reality. And the second thing is the importance of capturing the current moment. Like, never before has history felt so present as it has in this past year. And I think it is so significant and it needs to be studied in the future and right now in order to imagine what could be a more intentionally built and just version of this whole thing, the internet. So with that said, I'm supporting the Internet Archive this year. I'm sure most of us at this point have come across their Wayback Machine at some point, whether we're just looking up old YouTube homepage designs or finding a previous copy of some website that's been down for years, or even just bored and trying to find an old game like Oregon Trail that we could play with our friends again. And I find the Internet Archive to be especially important because they serve as a kind of backbone for many other projects. They have a feature that allows you to take what you see on a website at a specific point in time and keep that. So it preserves everything about the state of the page at that point, and then you can use that in citations without risking a situation where it disappears in a decade or a year or even the next day. Or if the site gets completely redesigned and no longer has any of the content that you were originally trying to cite, then it also makes sure that that old stuff that was there is captured in some form so that you can, just not be gaslighted by time passing on the internet. They also have a project of digitizing and preserving books, which they call the Open Library, and it has a goal to archive every book that has ever been published, which is, quite daunting. But part of that also involves saving them in a way that is accessible to everyone, so that people can search within those books and find what they're looking for. A side effect of this particular project has actually been to make Wikipedia better at being Wikipedia. It's more reliable now because people can check the citations of books much more easily than they could before this project. So if you need to verify a reference that is super obscure and no one can find a copy of that book anywhere anymore, then maybe the Internet Archive has it, and then you can actually check to see if it has what the person who wrote that part says it has. And on a broader note, history is now. It is you and me on the internet, staring at our smartphones and laptops and meeting with people and also making friends. And those connections, all of this is important. What you've written on the internet doesn't stay there forever. So much of the information that we think of as our own is actually stored on servers owned by corporations that are ultimately driven by money. And if they stop having that, then your things will probably disappear. This has happened already with sites like GeoCities, Yahoo Video, all these things that you don't think of anymore because they don't exist anymore. And there are archivists all over the internet who have found these things to be important and have tried to varying degrees of success to save these groups and networks and all of these things. Most recently, just a month ago, you might remember that there was a story about a bunch of web hosting services refusing to continue hosting the social media site Parler. Parler. And this was in the aftermath of the insurrection that happened at our nation's capital. But after that news came out, a group of security researchers actually found a way to access all of the public posts on that network. And they scraped the site to get all of the posts so that the record of what those people had been saying would be preserved. And the place where that data ultimately will be stored for preservation is the Internet Archive. I think a lot of the future of the internet, if we want it to progress in a positive way, will depend on nonprofit organizations like the Internet Archive. Because as advocates for a free and open internet, they're also making more ways for information to be verified and for us to, not forget the recent history of all of these ephemeral websites and forums and everything where people interact. I've linked my sources and some further reading that you might find interesting in the doobly-doo below, and make sure to vote if you found this argument compelling, and enjoy the rest of your P4A. Thanks for listening.